Hi everyone! For the past week I've spent about 24/7 researching nCov 2019, and I've made several research videos so far, referencing in detail over 20 different scientific research journals and studies. This is the video though that I have spent the most time on, as it encompasses the facts from all the other videos. And from the beginning I have said I'm here to document evidence so it isn't deleted from the internet. Even today, I don't know the truth. I don't know what clips from China are actually related to the virus. All I have are theories, and all the evidence I have to make those theories plausible. So I hope you will send me more evidence that proves my theories wrong. I really do, because I don't want to be right about this. I'll continue to search for myself, and I also made a Telegram channel which you can talk and share stuff on. The link will be in the comments. And this entire time, I have focused on the science, not the geopolitical reasons why this would be a bioweapon or anything like that, which is what a lot of people like Alex Jones and stuff are focusing on. I'm focusing on the genome. I'm focusing on all that stuff. So let's just jump right on into it, as some other YouTubers would say. Okay. So the first video that I made was on cytokine storms. I came across a post on Twitter that brought this phenomenon to my attention. I had documented tens of videos of young, healthy-looking people dead on the street, and there were a few of them of them actually collapsing. So there's videos of people just collapsing, and they look like they died, but who knows if they actually died or if they just passed out. But so I'm just gonna play those videos in the corner while we talk about this. So I found out that when an infection occurs, cytokine cells can sometimes flood your body. This can cause organ failure and sudden death. It's actually more likely to happen to people with a healthy immune system. Okay, so cytokines signal immune cells such as T cells. Now remember this word, T cells are important, and macrophages to the travel site of the infection. And too many immune cells are activated in a single place. The precise reason for this is not entirely understood. Cytokine storms have potential to do significant damage to body and tissues and organs. If a cytokine storm occurs in the lungs, for example, fluids and immune cells such as macrophages may accumulate and eventually block off all airways, potentially resulting in death. The cytokine storm is the systematic expression of a healthy and vigorous immune system. So just because you're young and healthy does not mean that you're safe from this disease. Okay, so I don't know if cytokine storms, so like when I first read about cytokine storms, I knew that they could occur from any viral infection, but I didn't know that their occurrence is highly elevated during HIV infection, which is the infection of the T cell. So I'm going to quickly explain HIV. So when we talk about this throughout the video, you have a basic fundamental understanding in HIV. So the acute systematic symptoms of acute seroconversion syndrome are thought to be due to a systematic cytokine storm. Okay, so that's just our intro to it. So these are the stages of the HIV life cycle. Okay, so you're infected with HIV, you have butt sex, and the virus attaches itself to a T helper cell and releases the HIV into the cell. Once inside the T helper cell, HIV changes in genetic material so it can enter the nucleus of the cell and take control of it. By the way, fusion or entry inhibitor drugs stop this from happening. A lot of people don't know this, but they actually have a semi-cure for HIV. Basically, within the first 72 hours after being exposed to HIV, there's certain drugs you can take, and if you take those drugs, there's a very good chance that HIV will not infect you and that you'll be fine. And even sometimes when you are exposed to HIV and it gets into your body, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna find your cells and get into them. Sometimes your immune system takes care of it before they get into those cells. So that causes that to happen. So there are drugs. So there is like a cure to HIV, but it's only during the first 72 hours after exposure. Okay, so once inside the T helper cell, HIV changes its genetic material so it can enter the nucleus of the cell and take control of it. And then other drugs can stop that from happening. Replication. The infected T helper cell then produces more HIV proteins that are used to produce more HIV particles inside the cell. Assembly, budding, and maturation. The new HIV particles are then released from the T helper cell into the bloodstream, which infects other cells, and so the process begins again. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the T cell really quick. So T cells are like the soldiers who search out and destroy targeted invaders. So bacteria and viruses, T cells go after them. T cells can produce substances called cytokines, and those are kind of like the foot soldiers, and these are kind of like the generals, such as interleukins, which further stimulate immune response. Okay, T cells are known. This T cell activation is measured as a way to assess the health of patients of HIV and frequently than other disorders. By the way, they are measuring T cells in cases of the Wuhan virus. So, T cells are also known as lymphocytes, and remember that word. That's another important word. The T stands for thymus, the organ in which these cells mature. Okay. So we're just going to finish. So I believe HIV is the only human virus that can infect T cells, but I'm not sure. I couldn't find out via Google. I've never heard of anything else infecting them. I didn't know that, I've already said this, but I didn't know the T cell actually increases the chances of cytokine storms. And in different studies, it said that cytokine storms are happening a lot with the Wuhan virus. So that's one of the pieces of evidence that we'll get to later that, says that this could be airborne HIV. And then we're going to talk about these really quick because we're going to talk about ACE2 receptors, which is the second video I made. So, like I said, we're just doing a quick overview of all those. So when a virus gets into your body, this is a virus, and these right here are, I forget what they're called. They're usually proteins, like it's called a spike protein on the coronavirus, touches the ACE2 receptor. And then on I forget what it is. Oh, on HIV, it's called a GP120 protein, touches a CD4 receptor, and it gets into the cell. Okay, so those are like the keys to the cell. Okay. So I argued that it was possible that the virus was a bioweapon designed to target a specific ethnic group, which is East Asians. This is because East Asians have the most ACE2 receptors of all ethnic groups. And that's suspicious. What are the chances that this virus would happen in a population that it can do the most damage to? Now, I know people say, well, it just happens to be that there's bats there that have coronaviruses. And I'm just like, well, how many other animals have coronaviruses? Is it just bats? And it's just bats in China? Like, coronaviruses don't exist anywhere else in the world? I am not convinced that MERS and SARS could also be bioweapons. Okay, so, everybody's heard about this study so far. If you're on 4chan, it's mentioned all the time. It's called the Single Cell RNA Expression Profiling ACE2, the Putative Receptor of Wuhan 2019 nCov. And this is a study that claims that East Asian lungs have 5 times more ACE2 receptors cells than other races. And the first thing about the study is that it mentions that that death is caused in approximately 15% of infected individuals. And that is not the only time that I've seen that in a study. I've seen it in like 3 other studies about the Wuhan virus that said that it's 15%. I think it's higher. I think it's 30%, 30 to 50%. And I think that if it does infect T cells, then it's 100% deadly. So, because it will lead to AIDS, and AIDS always kills you. So, no association was detected between the ACE2 receptor expressing cell number and the age or smoking of the status of the donors. Okay, and that will contradict a later study. I'm not going to say that, but okay. The 2 male donors had a higher ACE2 expressing cell ratio than the other 6 female donors. So there was 8 people that had did they have the virus? I don't know. But there was 8 people that they tested their lung material for ACE2 recepting cells, and they found that in 2.5% of white male cells, there was 2.5% of Asian cells where it had the receptors, and only 0.47% of black males had receptor cells. Okay, and then it was even starker, so me, female, I am immune to this, and you're all gonna die. Because females also had a third of that. So, yay us. Actually, that's horrible. I really don't want to be alive if it's only women who are alive on the earth. Fuck that. Fuck that. That sounds awful. Okay, so no association was detected between the ACE2 expressing cell and age or smoking of the donors. I already read that. Sorry. And yeah. Alright, so this is not the only thing that I base this whole ACE2 receptor theory on. So this is a much more extensive study on ACE2 receptor quantity in lungs, and they used hundreds and hundreds of different human subjects. Like each one of these is like 60 to 100 people that they studied for each sequence. Okay, so there's like 1,000 people or something. Maybe that's why it's called 1,000 Genome Project. That's probably why. Now that I think about it. Okay. The scientists discovered that certain single nucleotide polymorphisms were associated with higher levels of ACE2 receptor cells. So these are unique sequences seen in the human genome. People of different races had more of these sequences in their genome. So each of these, this is a sequence. This is a sequence. This is a sequence. They're all sequences. Okay? And they're unique sequences that not everybody in the population has. And so it's higher in East Asians. More East Asians have this sequence than Europeans, right? And these are all the sequences that are known to have an increase in ACE2 receptor cells in the lungs. So the scientists discovered that these unique sequences seen in the human genome, people of different races had more of these sequences in their genome. So this led to them to create this chart. So like you can see that East Asians are at the top of every single one of these. And then all the other ones kind of switch around, switcheroo. And so these are the populations with higher ACE2 receptor cells. Unfortunately, our awesome Tokyo friends are also kind of screwed. And it's basically all the Asians, randomly Peruvian. So I guess my best friend's gonna die. And it's my best friend's from Peru. Yeah, so you can see all those. And yeah, so now this guy came along and he read that study, and he is I can't do words. He is a geneticist in the Department of Health Sciences in the University of Columbia, or the University of South Carolina. Is that different? That's different, right? Yeah, that's different. So he's not even in a real college. So first off, I can totally say that because I've totally been to college, and I'm definitely better than this guy. I'm so much more intelligent and greater. I'm just kidding, I'm not. I'm saying I don't trust his study. It's just one guy, and it's a preprint. So on February 5th, this preprint study came out. It claimed that there was no difference in ACE2 receptors for any racial group at all. So first off, it's a preprint, which means it hasn't been peer-reviewed. And I found the methods flawed. So, because the results don't really make any sense, okay? Because, like I said, I have the 1000 Genome Project. I have the first ACE2 receptor study. I have multiple articles talking about how Asians are the only ones that get infected with SARS. I have all this stuff that go towards the fact that people with ACE2 receptors, and in fact, I even have these other ones, these studies I'm not even mentioning in here. But yeah, there's so many studies proving that ACE2 receptors are higher in Asians. Now, the reasoning for that is where this gets disputed with his study. So we'll get into this. So the main problem, so this just explains, significant disparities in ACE2 expression were found by racial groups, higher ACE2 expression in smoker samples compared to non-smoker samples. And in this study, we're going to find it really quick. Here we go. We're going to find it. I swear we're going to find it. Okay. It said that there was no association was detected between ACE2 receptor expressing cell number and the age or smoking status of the donors. So they said that there was no difference. Now in 8 people, I don't know how you would actually be able to say that, but so there's a place where they can contradict. So, that's what I said. These were taken from lung cancer patients. So that doesn't necessarily, that's not a very good thing. Okay, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. Basically, we have so much evidence, and I mentioned this, that SARS only infected Chinese people and East Asians. Okay, so thus 2 coronavirus cases were just confirmed in the UK. But if you read the article, both turned out to be Chinese nationals. Similarly, a recent headline in the Helsinki Times read, "First Wuhan coronavirus confirmed in Finland." But it turns out to be a Chinese tourist in Lapland, not a Finn. In fact, as far as I can tell, all of the confirmed cases have been Chinese people. Now, this shit really pisses me off, okay? Because unfortunately it is racist to talk about the race of the victims. So we don't really get to know the answer to this question. Are only Chinese people being infected, or mostly only Chinese people being infected? I don't know. I haven't been able to find a story where a person of a different race was infected. I haven't done a lot of research on that, though, because I have been paying attention. I've been researching the science. I've been very focused on that because, like I said, I don't trust the case numbers and stuff. But that is the one question I have is, how many of these people are Chinese and how many are white or black or anything else? And we don't get to know that because it's racist. Isn't that nice? Thank you. Thank you, NPCs. Thank you, mainstream media. Thank you for fucking with science and not letting us do science because of my racism. Okay. All right. So, but it's apparent that the vast majority of cases are Chinese people, and it doesn't appear to be spreading to other populations. So, potentially in line with the findings of Chinese researchers, the mortality rate for SARS in Europe was almost nil. Minuscule numbers of people caught it, and only 1 of them died. In France, where there was an atypically high 7 cases. By contrast, in Hong Kong, the mortality rate for SARS was 17%. In Taiwan, it was 10%. In Canada, it was 17%. But it seems pretty obvious that they were all Chinese Canadians, while with there being so many Chinese people in Canada. But essentially, it can be said that the SARS was... Oh, yeah, by the way, China owns Canada. Chinese people own more land in Canada than Canadian people, by the way. So this is... So there's that conspiracy theory that Canada was making this weapon to kill Chinese people, right? So... that's actually part of that. But anyways, essentially it can be said that SARS was an East Asian disease, which, like corona, can be traced back to bats. SARS didn't severely impact the rest of the world, despite people definitely catching it. It disproportionately killed East Asians. See SARS, blah, blah, blah. Many Chinese people believe that SARS virus could be a biological weapon manufactured by the United States. And that's what's mentioned in Wikipedia. So, yeah, and I'm not convinced either. I think that SARS could have been a bioengineered weapon. At least, there could have been a SARS that could have existed in nature, and then somebody engineered it to kill China. So I think this might have been going on for a long time. Okay. So, so this evidence about the ACE2 receptors, this should give you the most hope for humanity, right? Because if it is an engineered disease that only infects, or mostly only infects East Asians, then the world might not end if this is actually airborne HIV, right? But it sucks because personally, I love Chinese and I love Japanese people, and I talk with them on Twitter, and they're all really nice, hardworking, funny, intelligent, and most of them love Trump, Republicans, and democracy. I haven't seen a single one that doesn't. They all hate the Communist Party, by the way. So, however, and they're so cool. And they're so based. And like the memes that they post are amazing, and you need to check it out. You need to see how amazing Chinese people are because they're so awesome, and it sucks. And I hate that 4chan calls them chinks and doesn't like them because they're pretty cool. So, however, our government despises China, at least their government. So for the past 2 years, Trump has done everything he could to encourage businesses to move their factories out of China, or, to just buy from factories out of China, either back to America or somewhere else in the world. He has given all corporations and businesses tax breaks so they have extra money to spend on moving, and then he put a huge 25% tariff on Chinese imports. And I agree with these actions, by the way. So just because I love Chinese people doesn't mean I hate my own economy. This made most executives in America start to seriously consider moving out of China. Most of them probably have made plans to do so and are just waiting for a reason, like Trump gets reelected, or China shuts down and doesn't make anything anymore. Because 90% of China's exports have stopped since January 24th. And this will be the reason why most executives will, this will be the reason for them. The virus has already devastated China's economy, as many corporations will be leaving or buying their products from other places already. This outbreak has been highly beneficial to America, unless it spreads here, of course. So there's a chance that this bioweapon will destroy China, but leave the rest of the world alone. In my opinion, that is highly unlikely. First off, it can mutate at any time. And second off, if somebody could do that with a virus, that's insane. Being able to engineer a virus to do that and confidently release it, that takes some serious freaking skill, okay? That's wild. So I did a podcast last night. Oh, did I mention this? What is this? Oh, yeah, this is right. Okay. So this is what we're talking about next. Okay. So last night I did this, and I'm just going to mention this briefly. I did this podcast last night talking about talking about these studies I found from Beijing, and it's called the expression cloning of functional receptor using SARS coronavirus. Okay. So I found these studies, and I kind of flipped out last night. Last night I flipped out over a completely different study, but these ones made me semi-flip out 2 days ago. Because basically back in 2004, these Chinese scientists decided to take SARS and splice HIV cells into them, and then those cells were able to infect ACE2 receptors. Now, they didn't say if they tested if they could infect CDR, so I don't know if they accomplished that or not with that first thing, but I'm just saying that at this time, scientists started working on a HIV SARS pseudovirus back in 2004. So if you think that there's no chance that this could be a bioweapon, they've had 16 years. They've been doing this for 16 years. You think it's impossible that this is a bioweapon? That in the past 16 years they haven't figured this out? So yeah. All right. So like I said, now this is it. This is the end of the world. This is it. Okay, I'm not certain about anything. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys the evidence. You make out what you will. Okay. So I found this article, and it was in Chinese. So I have the source. I have all the sources. Will be in the description again, as always. And this source is in Chinese. So if you go to this website, it's called Epoch Times. If you go there, it's in Chinese. And you have to translate the webpage, which is what I did. And you know what's amazing is like automatic Chinese translations make so much sense. It's like crazy to me. I can't believe that. But yeah, this is all translated automatically through, a computer AI. And it makes perfect sense. It's totally readable. It's actually, in fact, this is the easiest to read study of all the studies that I have read. So first, we're going to talk about the validity of the study, right? So we've got this woman, the apocalypse speaker. Okay, this is the author of the study. And she's the co-founder of Sunregen, which is actually in Switzerland. So I thought this was a Chinese person, and I guess it is a Chinese person, but they are in Switzerland. And so a description of the organization is Sunregen is focused on innovative treatments for patients suffering from neurological, neuromuscular, and it says OPH, ophthalmic. Our first product candidates in development target of ophthalmic disease. We further evaluate them for use in serious neurological and neuromuscular diseases. So the good news is that they don't specialize in biological genome or viruses, so that increases the chances of them being incorrect. And I really, really, really hope that they're incorrect. I hope that I'm incorrect. I really do. So, and I guess with that, we'll just start reading the study. Okay, we'll just read the study. Yes, this is about their thing. This is how long they've been in existence. Blah, 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 blah. This is what she's done with her life. She's been a thing since 2005. So, Okay. So, this new virus has extremely high transmission speed. A high basic RO, which everybody knows because you guys are so smart. You guys know a thing. Me. I'm from 4chan. I know everything because I know what RO means. And high lethality characteristics, posing as an unprecedented huge threat to humans. Most papers point out that the similarity between 2019 nCov and bat coronavirus is 88%. That of SARS coronavirus, it is 79%, and that of MERS, it is only 50%. So this natural recombination may not be the cause of the virus, right? So this is their first argument. They're saying, we don't think that this is a natural thing. Now they're going to explain why. Okay. That is, they did not evolve naturally. They went into how nCov didn't mutate very much, hasn't mutated very much, so it doesn't make any sense. And it's a very long thing, and it's very scientifically explained that I didn't want to bother with explaining to you because it's not that important. So second, the South China Sea market, which sells a variety of non-aquatic animals, including mammals, was not sold. No bats were found. The sequences of these two bat coronaviruses are not direct ancestor of the 2019 nCov. Okay? So they're just kind of saying, yeah, we don't think that this was from bats. Okay, so we've talked about receptors before, but each virus must have a receptor that binds to human cells, can only live within human cells, and must rely on human cells for replication. Without these functions, viruses that are present in human blood or tissue fluid are easily cleared by the human immune system, right? So that's the whole thing. It might get cleared out by your immune system if you don't have, as many ACE2 receptors. So the virus enters human cells through specific surface protein channels. The interaction of viral, unless you're, there's the in-between. So yeah, your immune system could react to the virus and freak out, and then you die from cytokine. Everybody dies. This is the end of the world. Okay. The virus enters human cells through specific surface protein channels. The interaction of viral surface proteins with human cells is similar to unlocking a key. See, they make it a nice little graphic. Look at that. Look at how simple. See how nice this study is. Previous studies have shown that the difference between coronaviruses bind to several receptors in different ways, such as the ACE2 of SARS-CoV. The presence of large numbers of ACE2 receptors in human tissues, especially the epithelium of the lung and small intestine, provides a pathway for SARS-CoV to enter the human body. So they're basically saying this is why the virus can replicate so fast, is because of how many ACE2 receptor cells there are. Therefore, to our surprise, Wuhan CoV protein was found to have significant binding to human ACE2 despite replacing 4 of the 5 important interfacial amino acid residues. Okay, so 4 of 5 amino acid residues. 4/5 of their receptors changed between this and SARS. Okay? So these receptors, 4 out of 5 amino acids are different. Those 4 out of 5 amino acids also happen to be the ones that are found in HIV. Okay? Therefore, Wuhan coronavirus is still able to bypass binding pathway of S protein and ACE2, posing a major public health risk to human transmission. Basically, that's why it's so contagious, is because it can still, despite the receptors changing so drastically, it can still, okay? So do you understand how this is bioengineered yet? Like, the evidence of it? Okay. We already know that 2019 nCov is a virus different from SARS and that S protein is highly mutant. Therefore, if the gene sequence, protein structure, and function of S protein of 2019 nCov are different from SARS virus, it will be insufficient. Curious. However, how can this new coronavirus intelligently and precisely select which site mutations while retaining its affinity for the human ACE2 receptor? Why can the virus change only 4 amino acids of the S protein? And how do you know to use the clustered regularly special proteins to ensure that these actions occur? And now they're also showing that the actual splices in looked like this. And I looked at them, and you know what's really funny is I should have taken a screenshot of that. The original study that points out these 4 changes, in the original post on the internet, you could actually see they had the genome and then they had it highlighted where it was different. They deleted that from the website. That's no longer a part of the study. So they hid that. They hid that these sequences look like this. I wonder why they would do that. Surprising discovery, S protein infected with HIV. 2019 nCov spinous protein unique insertion fragment and HIV GP120 protein and GAG. Uncanny similarity of unique inserts in 2019 nCov spike protein of HIV GP120 and GAG. That's the research study I was just talking about. Here are 4 unique inserts in the spike glycoprotein, S protein, are related to HIV, the GP120 protein. 4 unique inserts found in 2019 nCov, all of which have identity or similar to amino acid residues in key structural proteins of HIV, which are in nature, is unlikely to be accidental. To our surprise, this sequence inserts was not found in the S protein of SARS coronavirus or other proteins of the coronavirus family. So these 4 sequences were completely unique to this virus. Unexpectedly, all inserts were consistent with human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. GP120 recognizes the host by binding to the receptor of CD4 cells, and this plays a key role in the process. HIV attaches to CD4 cells and then enters and infects them. People infected with HIV lose their immune or defense systems, much like a country without military power. The authors once again emphasize that it is unlikely that the S protein of 2019 nCov is inserted with a fragment that is highly similar to HIV GP120 protein and GAG protein. Designed to bind to the target cell receptor site, the accidental mutations in nature are randomly distributed over the entire length of the S protein. Okay, they would be random. And all these inserts occur at the same time as the binding site of the S protein, which is highly unlikely to happen. Now, this looks confusing, but you can actually see this, okay? So, the inserts from HIV protein are shown with the color beads present at the binding site of the protein. So, these are HIV. Isn't that freaking, that's so spooky? These are the sequences. See how they're That is not natural. So they're just showing this is what happens when the HIV cell enters. Okay, clinical evidence. Patients with cytokine storm blood lymphocytes decreased. So are the findings of the experts, such as Pradin, right or wrong? If correct, the new coronavirus should be able to invade human CD4 T cells and produce corresponding clinical features. Airborne HIV. The incidence of dyspnea was 55%. Median time for onset of dyspnea's difficulty breathing was 8 days. 63% had lymphonia, and that's the swelling of your lymphodes, like in your neck and in your arms and all that stuff, which is very, very common with HIV infection. Your lymphodes, what are they called? Whatever they're called, get super swollen, and it's like the worst. It's like the most insane thing. So complications include respiratory arrest syndrome, which, as we learned earlier, that's 29%. Cytokine storm, okay? Acute heart injury, 12%. Okay. 32% of patients were admitted to intensive care unit, and 6 patients died. So this is a different study that I didn't post, but there's a study that, actually no, this is part of the Prady one, but so yeah, this is a number I've heard a lot on Twitter from a lot of different sources, a lot of scientists and a lot of people that, officials, investigators, there's private investigators in China that are making posts on Twitter that are going around, and they're saying that it is at least 15%. Now, personally, I think it's 30 to 50%. I really do. And we'll get to that in a minute, but, and if it can infect your CD4 cells and there's no cure, it is a 100% mortality rate. It just takes a while, so. Although low white blood cell counts are common in viral infections, it is surprising that 63% of patients and 85% of ICU patients show a decrease in lymphocyte counts, which is less within the last 1.0 times 10L. According to a 2004 study on SARS, the average lymphocyte count in patients with SARS is usually normal. Okay, so now they're going further into evidence that the lymphocytes drop. So, 2 clinical guidelines. The quick guide for, these are currently used in China for this epidemic. Quick guide for the diagnosis and treatment of new coronavirus pneumonia. Instructions for handling 2019 new coronavirus. Hold on, I need water. Instructions for handling 2019 new coronavirus. Gradual decrease in, the first guide clearly states gradual decrease in lymphocytes, and the second guide emphasizes the importance of monitoring the absolute value of lymphocytes. Therefore, for a certain percentage of patients, observing the reduction of lymphocytes has considerable clinical significance. CD4 positive T lymphocytes make up the majority of all lymphocytes. CD4 positive T lymphocytes make up the majority. CD4 T. Another clinical feature of patients infected by 2019 nCov is high levels of serum cytokines and chemokines, the latter being defined in Professor Hung's paper as cytokine storm. This clinical feature is consistent with observations in Pradin et al. That the 2019 nCov S protein induces structural rearrangement in GP120, creating high-affinity binding sites for chemokine co-receptors such as blah, 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 blah. It is well known that activating T cell surface receptors can cause a cytokine storm. I did not know that, okay? That was the thing. I read that in the study, and I've read so much about cytokine storms with Wuhan virus that I was like, oh my gosh, that's the end of the world. Okay. So, which has the potential to cause significant damage to organs and body tissues. Dun, da, da, da. Right? So, There it is again. For example, if a cytokine storm occurs in the lungs, immune systems may trigger tissue damage resulting in acute respiratory distress and possible death. Okay. Although the U.S. Centers of Disease and Control and Prevention states that there's currently no specific antiviral treatment for nCov infected persons, there have been several cases of Wuhan patients benefiting from lopinavir and others, treatment with anti-HIV drugs. Therefore, more such detailed clinical experience should be shared. All right, now this is it. This is the graphic that explains why this is airborne HIV. Supposedly, I am totally not convinced, and I'm so theorizing right now. I don't believe that this is airborne HIV. Ha 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 ha. Okay. First, there's no close genetic relationship to the other coronaviruses. Similar to SARS virus with ACE2 binding, progressive lymphocytopenia, and cytokine storm. High RO, fast human-to-human transmission with high fatality. Empirical treatment with anti-HIV drugs. Precise insertions in the S protein without changing the affinity to ACE2 and similar to HIV G120. It's GP120, but whatever. Okay, so. And then I was also going to show you guys this. This is SARS. This is 2019 nCov, okay? So, they're pretty different. This is HIV, and this is MERS. So, GP120, and then S protein, and those are, look at how different that looks. Look at that. So yeah, you can just look at that for a minute. This craziness. Oh my god. Okay. Alright. That will be, I'll probably put that on the Telegram. Okay. So, actually, I shouldn't have closed that. Open that back up again. No! Where'd you go? Is this it? No! No! Okay, I guess you guys don't get to look at it anymore. So, I do want it, though. I do want it. Always worry that some weird thing's gonna come up. Okay, so like I said, the study didn't come from the most reputable source. They did not consult, oh, yes, they did. They mention a lot, like in the actual study, like I said, I took excerpts from the studies. I took excerpts from all these studies. These are not the full studies. They are very small amounts of the studies. Throughout the study, they mention virologists that they talked to and biologists that they talked to while making the study. So it's not like these neurologist doctors like came up with this theory. Like they consulted professional experts. So mainly, like, this has been my theory for the past few days developing into this. It was just that study really brought a lot more evidence. So yeah, and look at this. Look at these things. Hemagglutinin. The hell is that? It's not in this. What is that? You know? So weird. It's so weird. It's so different. It's so different. Look at how crazy that looks. That just looks like, how does that look so engineered? I don't know. Okay, so like I said, okay, so we're just gonna, I went through some tweets last night, but these are just the most important ones. So Miles pointed out that there are 49 crematoriums in Hubei province which work 24 hours a day for the past 17 days consecutively. The real number for confirmed cases is 1.5 million. The burned bodies are over 50,000. If it is made by white people, then the investigation is likely to be over, and the Americans themselves cannot be blamed. Of course, the yellow race does not have the IQ to play the synthesis. I said before that the Wuhan coronavirus has a high affinity with the human body. It not only infects the lungs, but also easily invades other organs, causing infections in patients' myocardium and other organs. Heart. That's heart. Because of myocardial inflammation, it is not obvious, and myocardial pain is lacking. Sudden death of myocarditis and renal failure in patients without symptoms is often seen on the streets and in hospitals. Cytokine storm. At the time, many people questioned my claim that there was no scientific basis. Now mainland medical experts have proven this. That's why you need to administer medicine purely to kill people, take your temperature from door to door, and get you quarantined if you have a cold and fever. The quarantine is like a concentration camp, so you can never cross the infection and go straight to the crematorium. The Chinese haven't woken up yet. Sit and wait. All right, so I just wanted to put this up, but I was going to put this up, but I'm going to put this one up while I talk. So basically, so you don't quarantine 300 million people because of a bad flu. Nor do you well people into their apartments, shut down all your factories, or kidnap screaming people off the street while sometimes killing them in the process. There is still a very good chance that this virus is not a bioweapon or airborne HIV. However, you should be deeply concerned at this point. You should be getting prepared before hysteria sets in. You think there is unlimited food in America, right? Well, I went to Costco today and it made me feel a little silly because of the crazy amount of food that's there. But there are only a few foods that are super cheap to buy and have a lot of calories and have a long shelf life. Beans, rice, pasta, bread flour, etc. If a pandemic occurs in America, these items will be sold out in hysteria very first, overnight. Like all food, their prices will most likely skyrocket. Chances are no one will starve in America, but you might go hungry a lot and you might have to spend a lot of money on food. Also, you will need to continue to go into public all the time, as you will most likely only be allowed to purchase a small amount at a time. Like usually they say, you can only buy a loaf of bread. You can't come here and stock up on 5 so you don't have to go shopping again for a month, because they don't want people hoarding supplies when people are hysterical. So because the virus has a long incubation period, a big breakout of this disease could occur in America any day now. And even just if we discovered 300 cases at a college or something, hysteria would set in and people stores would be emptied. So, but like I said, I think there's a good chance that this is going to be contained to China, that it could be a bioweapon that's only going to infect Chinese. But it could still happen. We don't know what's going to happen. So, and people would get hysterical fast. So you need to get prepared as quickly as possible. So my next video is going to be a video about all the items that you should buy at Costco, eBay, and a couple of other sources. I will show you how much it will cost to purchase enough food for 2 to 4 people to last around a month, or 6 months, or a year. So keep an eye out for all of that. I will continue to document what is happening in China and attempting to contact residents there to learn what is really happening. There's been rumors that the government is going to fall, and that when that happens, the new people are going to walk in and immediately disable the firewall. So when they disable the firewall, all those videos and all that shit's going to flood, because there's just tens of thousands of people that don't have access to the internet right now. And what do you think is going to happen when they have access to the internet? So please share this with everyone you care about. Convince them that they need to be prepared. I'm trying to convince my husband's large family, so I don't have to share the small amount of food I'm able to purchase right now with them if shortages start occurring. Remember, if they don't prepare, it will most likely affect you. So please share this video with them. And again, I made a Telegram channel where we can talk and share stuff on. The link for that will be in the comments. So thank you and have a good evening. Bye-bye.